community of artists that I kind of existed in before this. And so it was like just a different art form. It was a different level of creativity. It was frankly, a different level of craziness, right? Like that was exhilarating and fun and creative people and a family atmosphere as you kind of experience in the music world. And, I kind of just remember waking up one day and saying, actually, I think this is my career. Like I love music, but I love music as a piece of enjoyment and something that I like to do, not necessarily something I feel like I need to do for a career. And I feel really at home in hospitality, and I've been there since.
I dig it. And thank you for honoring or recognizing my great question. I appreciate that as well. It's just geniuses recognizing it. Or would you say you're more of a classical pianist? Or are you more like a Brett Midland and a Paige McConnell guy, like jam band? What's your vibe in regards to the piano?
I was a classical pianist first. Yeah, classical, and then I went to school. I studied classical voice, classical music and opera. But when I moved to New York, I made a hard left turn, and it was all kind of music, theater, cabaret, and that's mostly what I did when I moved to New York. Was play for auditions for off-Broadway musicals and music direct musicals down in the Village and that kind of stuff. So much more casual, mainstream fun, if you will.
Okay,
but I'm all over the map when it comes to music.
Okay, last question before we dive into the coloring book collab. Do you ever get up there on like open mic night and just like spit on some like just random patrons in a bar? Just be like, oh, by the way, I'm gonna flex on y'all right here and now.
It's been a while, and certainly during the pandemic, I haven't had the chance to do that recently. But whether it's at an open mic night or it's at a karaoke bar, I've been known to cut loose here and there. So it's a nice outlet. Some
mezcal.
Yes, give me some mezcal, and I'm good to go.
Oh, I dig it. Well, speaking of alcohol, this is gonna be a perfect segue again. It'd be a great time to kind of bring this back to the course. And, one of those things of bringing everything together full circle would be, tell me a little bit about how we all got together. How did Emily and Kris get to collab together on, that coloring book you mentioned earlier? How did this come to fruition, guys?
I'll jump in there on that one because quite frankly, I cold called Kris and his team in the form of an email. My company had been, I should say company and friends, because in the beer community, there are so many collaborators who aren't necessarily colleagues on paper, but it's just a very small degree of separation in craft beer. And we reached out to our whole network and asked them to join us on a weekly turned monthly Zoom chat that we started calling Industry Relief, our Industry Relief Zoom, just to talk about issues that were happening during the pandemic. We brainstormed the idea for this coloring book and then voted as a team on what we thought might be the best nonprofit to receive the funds from the book. And the Open for Good nonprofit was on the list. It received the most votes, and I took it upon myself to email the James Beard team, who was so receptive and wonderful to work with. What a cool partnership this has become, just because of their welcomeness and generosity of spirit. It's been great working with you guys, Kris. And I'm actually just meeting Kris officially for the first time on your show.
Oh,
so
really?
Hi, Kris, and thank you.
Look at us creating friendships and opportunities.
We've emailed a lot, but we haven't actually gotten to hear each other's voices yet. So it's pretty cool.
No, exactly. And we were so thrilled when you reached out. I mean, it's just, I think this has been such a challenging year for everybody. It's been an especially challenging year for the food and beverage industry. And to see the generosity, both from those within the industry and those who want to support the industry, has just been really incredible. And I think the silver lining, if you can call it that, now that we're, on the other side of 2020, even though we're not on the other side of the pandemic, has been just all of the new relationships that have been forged in the last year as I think we've really seen the true kind of definition of community and people coming together and trying to support each other to get through this crisis and kind of get to the other side. And so we were so thrilled when you guys reached out. And then I know you spoke with a colleague of mine, Christina, first. And when she came to me and told me the idea and what you guys wanted to do, we were just so thrilled. I thought it was so cool and such a really fresh, exciting project. And again, one that we are so appreciative that would continue to support all of the work that we're doing in our efforts to help the industry survive. So it's been a great collab, and I think it's such a super fun way to be able to support the industry during a really difficult time.
And it's kind of been a thing of everyone's had to pivot, over the last year and find new ways to not only create a brand for themselves, but also to keep the lights on. And, we've seen a lot of restaurants in Denver, and I'm sure in New York and, everywhere in Durango as well, have had to shutter their doors forever. But at the same time, we're trying to find these ways to where we can help out without necessarily being in the restaurant themselves. And so, just for the $5, for those that are curious, and I guess we haven't done a plug yet, Emily, do a quick plug where they can buy it, so that if you want to support these campaigns, it is a very viable operation. How exactly is the best way for people to go about either making a donation or buying the coloring book that we spoke of?
Thank you for the plug option. You can go to radcraftbeer.com/industry relief to buy the coloring book. And it is only $5. And I love that you could, for the cost of a craft beer on tap, buy this book, send it to a friend, give yourself something to do that night, and do it all from the safety and comfort of your living room. Not to mention, coloring is fun and stress relieving and scientifically proven so. I'm a big advocate of just kicking it with your colored pencils and your beer or wine or whatever you might be drinking that night. And then I'll turn the torch or pass the torch to Kris to give details on how to directly support Open for Good and James Beard.
Thank you. Well, certainly, we hope people will purchase the coloring book, because that's one really meaningful way to support our work. We also, there's a lot of information available on our website, jamesbeard.org, and plenty of options to donate to a number of different initiatives. Open for Good Holistically, which is comprised of a number of different things that maybe we'll have a chance to talk about. But then we have some bespoke initiatives that we're running right now as well, including our new investment fund for Black and Indigenous Americans, which is really focused on trying to provide grant dollars to these communities who've been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, really to help those food and beverage businesses survive. So lots of options on jamesbeard.org/donate.
I love it. I love it. So, we actually, this is a very rare time that we do this, but Kris with a C, and I actually talked, prepared. We have questions for y'all in regards to not only the coloring book and the campaign that we're raising awareness and money for, but also some non-coloring book questions as well. Like, obviously you're in Durango, Emily, but we're going to talk about favorites in Colorado too. Don't be shy to be biased in that instance. But I think we would, let's start with some questions. We want to know a little bit about, I have one question for maybe those that don't have a printer at home. Emily, do we have a hard copy book that we can buy and mail to folks, or is this a printer PDF situation we're working with specifically?
So for this rendition of the coloring book, which has just been such a screaming success, we only have the digital version, which is available for download on Issue. That being said, we've had a couple of folks create their own versions of the book. Root Shoot Malting actually printed it out and bound it for all of their employees as a holiday gift, which I was very excited about. And it gave us the inspiration that that's an offering that we'd like to create for future coloring books. We think at this point that we want to do it every year and switch up the design each year, so the printable and then hard copy version will be available for this 2021 version.
Nice.
That being said, though, I got nothing for you on this one. If you don't have a printer at home, But I think I've discovered that you can at least find that access at like local FedEx and things like that. So even though it is kind of an extra step, that's what I've been doing because I don't personally own a printer either.
I mean, well, so that was my only question I had personally. I was like, well, as I do this in an Airstream motel, I was like, well, shit, what if you don't have a printer? But yeah, if you're not going to the UPS store once a week to mail edibles back south, what aren't you doing? So I understand completely.
No, I really don't know.
Don't worry, Kris with a K. That's a Colorado joke. But it's going to be a New York joke soon too. September, I hear.
Probably.
Kris, do you want to ask one of the next questions? You know, a little give and take.
Yeah, but so I was just thinking like on this coloring book whole idea, something that like popped into my mind. It kind of reminded me of this thing, and I don't know, Emily, if you've heard about like Outer Range in Frisco, but I think
Great
they
brewery.
did. Yeah, I think they did this thing this summer where they had like a coloring contest and you like colored in labels. Like, I guess they printed like a label around one of their beers and you could color in that label and like take a picture and enter the contest. And if you won, they would make that beer label. And I was just thinking like, that would be such a cool idea with this coloring book. You know, we're sharing ideas here, but like if you had something to where somebody could put like a potential canning kind of cover.
Well,
I totally love that idea. Like art is such a big part of, or I should say, visual art is such a big part of the brewing process for breweries that package. And to circle back to something that Kris with a K said about music and food, and that analogy of artisanship, I think beer and coloring can be just a couple more layers of that. So I really like the idea of encouraging people to kind of take it one step further. At this point, like I said, we've just had this wonderful outpour of interest and people who have colored the pages and then hashtag Radcraft industry relief. That's a fun one to follow if you are bored on Instagram. And I think that this idea has plenty of legs. I was curious, maybe while we're brainstorming, what this group thinks about maybe creating a coloring book that comes in the form of a calendar where each month is perforated and you can pull it off once you've colored it and experienced that month of the year. So that's an idea that we've had in other talks as well.
I like where your head's at. And Kris with a K is probably the mover and shaker here. We're just the middleman, Dan, making friends and bringing people together. But I mean, if y'all wanted, I could do like a bathing suit shoot and then y'all could color it, fill in the lines. I'm just floating ideas. Totally up to y'all. But I'm in.
Inspo from
I think it's a great
Kris
idea.
with a K's current location.
Yes, you all can come down here to shoot. Please, come on down.
You mentioned, support from all over. And Emily, I'd love it if let's give a little shout out. I know that some of the breweries there's some coloring book logos or, emblems that have been submitted from some of our breweries around the Colorado area. And then I recognize some from the Denver scene. Can we give a quick shout out to some of those that have kind of helped pave the way and help participate so that we can help support them as well?
Definitely. I would say our biggest supporter of the book thus far has been Bonfire Brewing. They're so excited about it, and they have not only been coloring themselves, but also going so far as to sponsor posts on social media about it, just because they really cared about the effort. Boulder Spirits is one of our 2 distilleries, and the other distillery in the book is Deer Hammer, which is right by where you are right now, Kip. Up in Buena Vista. And I love those particular pages just for myself personally on the design. Also in the Front Range area, Lone Tree Brewing Company is included. That's a great design. Down in my neck of the woods, we have Pagosa Brewing. Closest to Kris with a K, I would say, is probably Murphy and Rood Malting Company, which is a tiny and amazing specialty malt house in Charlottesville, Virginia. And it's just a wide-ranging group of kick-ass companies that were willing to let us have tons of fun with their logos.
I dig it. And obviously for those that, are listening, she mentioned, they're all over, not only the Front Range, but also in the mountains as well. So there's locations, I guess, the Buena Vista folks that I haven't